Thank you, Amal. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm extremely excited to be on the panel here with you this afternoon with such an exciting lineup of speakers who are really coming from different backgrounds, and we're very happy to kind of close up the session today with, let's say, a practitioner's guide. So everything you've covered today, we're going to try to put it together into say, what can you take this and action it going forward. So, of course, you guys would have been able to see the bios of these incredible speakers on the BIBF website. However, to give you a heads up, we have Ms. Saba and Mr. Yanal from the kind of academic training background. We have Ms. Adela from the entrepreneurship consultancy space, and Mr. Sidney would meet more on the corporate, also kind of trainer consultancy space. So I'm very excited, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. I always like to start with a question that lays the ground for the discussion. So I'm going to pose this question to say everything we've been hearing from the morning is how to make design thinking work, how does it work in different industries. But I really want to kind of narrow down for the rest of the day and say, why is it really that important to, in the context of culture, of innovation for the next generation? So when I say, why is design thinking important? Adela, I see you nodding your head, so I'll start over from there.
Thank you. And I was running in just because I had an interview, so I didn't mean to be disrespectful and be late, so that was the reason. Well, I think in all the major changes that we want to achieve, it's about culture behind. Because if you look around, new businesses opening, no matter if it's a restaurant, if it's a service provider, and everything looks perfect at the beginning. And in the first month, everyone is excited, and then things are starting to fade away. So I truly believe that if we don't build strong cultures of service, for example. Okay, thank you. Then nothing will actually stand on the long run. And if we speak about the next generation, that's the thing. So if we build for the next generation a culture of customer centricity, a customer of user experience, making them understand that whatever they will build in the future, because the life will be very challenging for the generation of our kids, for example. My kids are growing up already, are students. So the things will be more challenging for them than they were for us. So it's somehow our duty, the duty of our generation, to prepare them for the future. And in order to support them to be consistent, we need to build this culture of innovation and to build awareness.
So consultancy, change management, being able to keep up with the trends is my takeaway from you. Saba, any additions on this topic?
I think it's very crucial nowadays to adapt technology, to adapt innovation and creativity, because in the ever-changing world we're living in nowadays, if companies or organizations, let it be profit-making, non-profit, across all sectors, they have to adopt creativity and innovation. Otherwise, as mentioned earlier this morning, they will go out of business. So they can start by doing this by using a proven, well-structured and human-centered approach to achieve their results. And therefore, this is basically what design thinking offers. In addition, what the skills that the users of the design thinking methodology will get across or throughout the process of design thinking will add a lot to them as persons, like, for example, empathy, which is the first step in the design thinking process. In addition to confidence, leadership, and of course, thinking creatively, which are all invaluable skills to have in nowadays.
Fantastic, thank you so much. I hope everybody in the audience is kind of picking up bits and pieces. We're only laying the ground at this point. Sidney, from your perspective on the kind of corporate consultancy side, any additions to the same question?
I think that we're becoming a very globalized world, even more and more and more. Technologies are becoming decentralized, they're more accessible than ever, which means that on the plus side, anyone can start a company and deliver services that were unthinkable 10, 20 years ago. On the minus side, you don't know where your competition is coming from these days. It can come from anywhere, it can come from anyone. It can come from the strangest places. So you have to be delivering excellent service all the time. Your customers have to be delighted they have to find you the best provider of that service. So you have to continuously innovate. It's not the situation anymore that you have 2 or 3 companies in a country and they operate a sort of duopoly or triopoly. Competition can come from anywhere, so you have to stay sharp as an organization.
Fantastic. So I'm hearing customer centricity a lot today. I'm hearing competition, and I'm a business owner. I have my own company, so I kind of relate a lot to the element of staying ahead of the market or staying ahead of the trend. So I appreciate that. Yanal, it's lovely to have you. I think it's very interesting that you come from kind of the training side, but focused on maybe coding and software development. So I wanted to start off by saying, how does design thinking fit into that space? It seems quite binary, no?
Thank you for having me, and it's great to be here last minute, I know. Design thinking is an integral part, actually. It's extremely important, and to add to the question you asked earlier, and I agree with everything everyone said, I just want to add, start early, and start at the training, youth, university, training programs and so on. So design thinking is really important for implementing the principles in coding and software engineering. It enhances the learning experience for our learners, for our students. Companies, they don't really want developers working in silos, focused on only what they have to deliver in terms of programming. They want them to understand business aspects of the company. So there's no better way in terms of for design thinking that the user is central to that. So as they're going through their project or problem solving, the developer has a user-centric kind of mentality from the beginning, which is very important. In this way, this prepares students to kind of understand the real world challenges better, students and developers working in industry. And the iterative nature of design thinking goes very well, aligned very well with the agile methodologies in development.
Fantastic, thank you. So what I picked up from you is like now design thinking is previously, or at least maybe that's my thinking, we used to think that the software designers and the coding guys are on the back end. So they're as far away from the customer as possible, and maybe there's a consultant in the middle or a project manager. So now you're saying this allows to kind of bridge the gap and bridge the comms, right? And you mentioned something very interesting to start early, and I think a lot of the work that you guys do is maybe with Tim Keen and through EDB focuses on the youth, and I do believe we're very blessed with that in Bahrain, so there's a lot of investment in the younger generations. But do correct me if I'm wrong.
No, what Tim Keen and the EDB are doing is phenomenal. What we deliver at Reboot Coding Institute is a full stack developer. It's a 2-year program. It takes 18 months to become full stack. That means front end, back end, and data, the full spectrum of programming. So it's not a short course. It's a serious program that's quite challenging. And we aim to have 200 to 300 developers of this level come onto the market every year, year on year, year on year. And it's 18 months to become full stack, plus 6 months specialization. And there are 7 different tracks of specialization: AI, data science, mobile web development, etc.
That's a lot of effort. I think, again, you will notice that I highlight during the panel the solutions. So if anybody here is listening and they're interested in something that you've suggested, they know that gratefully in Bahrain we have a way to pursue it. It's not just we're on a panel and just talking about things. Adela, I'm going to go over to you, and I'm going to switch up from being into kind of coding and software to going on entrepreneurship. And I could see you smiling because I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, and they're always speaking about market opportunities. How do you identify the market opportunities? How do you identify innovative products and services? How do you keep up with trends? And tell me how design thinking can contribute or help in that area at all.
Well, I think design thinking is actually critical for all the needs of an entrepreneur, and it helps the entrepreneur to overcome the most dangerous thing that happens in the life of every entrepreneur. So normally when someone starts a business, is excited about it. That's the good part. All the entrepreneurs think, oh, I just invented a product that will change the world, but they are inside out. So they do something that they like. They try to produce something that they feel, oh, that's going to be the great product. And then, in many cases, they fail. And there is a saying that you should always produce a product or a service that at least other people than yourself and your mom would like to buy. because your mom will buy your product anyway because she wants to help you. So the biggest challenge for the entrepreneurs is to be able to overcome this bias of doing things that you would like to bring to the market, forget about what you want to bring to the market, and really go to the customers, potential customers, people around, and talk, learn. And design thinking is actually teaching people to do meaningful conversations, to ask the right questions, those questions that are triggering the right answers. And I heard one of the speakers today saying very nicely that we shouldn't ask, I think it was Hamad, not to ask about the solutions, to ask about the problems. And I would go even more beyond, ask about the needs and the unmet needs. Because there is a famous quote from Henry Ford that many people are misquoting. They say, well, Henry Ford said that if I would have asked my customer what they want, they would have said faster horses, so I didn't need to ask them. But that's not right. It's a misinterpretation of what Henry Ford said. So, because you don't have to go to the customers to ask them about the solution. Ask them about the need. So what would be your need? And the customer would have answered, I want to move faster from point A to B. That's the need, and the need didn't change. And then you can invent faster horses if you can invent the cars, hyperloops, whatever, and that's our job as entrepreneurs to come up with the answer. It's not the client that should give us the answer, but the client is the expert on the problem. And that's how design thinking can help in a nutshell.
I love it. I was just, while you were thinking, I was thinking, can we create faster horses? And I was like, I hope to God we can't, because I would love horses to be horses. But thank you for that. And I think that on the entrepreneurship side, and I'm sure you're aware, there's always a product market fit, right? Does the product, or is the product that you generated fitting within the market? Otherwise it flops. And then we also see large businesses similar to Airbnbs and the likes that have created product after product, iteration after iteration, getting closer to the market. And so I love that. Thank you very much, Adela. I'm going to come over to Ms. Saba. If Adela and Mr. Yanal talked to me about entrepreneurship coding, then there must be a role for education and academia and actually building that, because we can't expect the youth to come and miraculously have everything that the market needs. So if you can explain to me the role, it would be very useful to bridge a gap.
Definitely. The first point is to start and cultivating and fostering a culture of innovation and creativity is to start with education. So the academic institutions can start with introducing courses and workshops to educate and teach us basically the design thinking methodologies and principles. Secondly, they can also have seminars and conferences such as the one we're here and today to basically encourage people to know and to spread the knowledge about the field. Additionally, academic institutions can also offer their resources such as libraries, innovation labs, for students to get in and exchange information and experiences within a safe environment. Additionally, they can add by having talks and events to educate people about the same subject, and they will get, the students will get the basically platform to discuss with their faculty and get the experience and knowledge they want.
So there's a lot of exposure and kind of knowledge transfer from what I picked up from
Absolutely, and this is the let's say the foundation of starting educating the environment about it.
Wonderful. I have to say I'm really grateful that these are the speakers in my panel, because your points are tying in so beautifully. It's like you're having like a pearl necklace as you sit with me, so it's wonderful. Sidney, I'm going to come over to you and I'm going to make it a tad bit tougher. So everything they said to me are kind of ideas about how important it is and how it could be useful. Now I want you to kind of allow us to see what are corporate strategies that can be adopted on the corporate side. I know a couple of the faces around, and some of them are senior people in their organizations. If they wanted to adopt that within the organization, what strategies would you suggest?
Well, okay, so the theoretical correct answer is to say, well, acknowledge that design thinking is a culture that you have to implement immediately across all your departments, and everyone should be a design thinker starting tomorrow. That's not really a practical answer though, right? That's completely impractical. I'd say the first thing to do is to really start to understand your customer and to really get feedback points or feedback mechanisms, feedback loops on all your customer touch points. Then you're going to start gathering and understanding who your customers are, what they want from you. You know, one of the biggest mistakes I see restaurants making these days is they're handing over their customers to talabat, right? All their customers don't belong to them anymore. They belong to talabat. They have no idea how their customers are experiencing their hard work. They have literally no clue. They've lost all connection. And I think that's a mistake that's going to be very detrimental to probably 50 or 60% of the restaurants in the next 10 years.
So sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but you're saying it needs to be integrated within the process, within the business process, yeah?
Yeah, and you see a lot of companies doing this, right? Whenever I go take my car for service, within one day I get an email asking how it was. If I don't reply, they send a reminder. If I don't reply, someone calls me. They're really desperate to know how they're doing. It can feel annoying as a customer, but it's really essential as a company to get that feedback. Because, as I mentioned before, you're in competition with everyone. You're one bad experience away from losing a customer. And you don't just lose a customer. We're also in the age of social media. You've lost someone who is a maven, who can shout and scream about how amazing your product is. And you've turned them into someone who says, nah, I wouldn't do that if I were you. So that's the first thing I would do. Second is I would sort of say, look, as a management, you need to have the tools for your people to allow them to take that feedback and actually create solutions. Give them the freedom to think about solutions. Give them the freedom to experiment. Give them the freedom to fail. Right? Failure is a very bad word in corporate. I mean, you have a corporate background as well. You know, failure is not an option. It should be. You should be allowed to experiment. You should be allowed to fail. And take the learnings from that and iterate and iterate and iterate until you have an amazing product.
I love that you said that, and I know I have an ex-colleague in the room here, so what I'm going to say, I'm not going to refer to my corporate background. However, what I'm trying to say is you're basically saying it has to be part of the culture. Because I can't say failure if the organization does not accept that, so it needs to be part of the overall acceptable culture.
Well, and that's set by who? That's set by top management, right? Yeah. Top management sets that. Then middle management accepts that, and they set that. Then the interim management accepts that, and so on and so forth. So it has to be a top-down. And you can't just say it at your yearly corporate speech where you say, guys, experiment, we love it. And then the first guy that fails gets fired.
Yeah, I know. It's very interesting. I think this panel is heating up. I don't know if you feel it, especially because you referred to my corporate background. Now I'm trying to get out of it. So I'm going to head over to Yanal very politely. And Yanal, you said that you, in the work that you do, like to create generation after generation of coders, right? And you are on the training side, and you work with very important organizations in Bahrain. Explain to me, how does that innovation, problem solving, the critical thinking, the elements that are very important to design thinking, integrated into your training programs?
So at Reboot, we are constantly focused on preparing the learner for their next job in tech. And there's several methodologies of design thinking that we implement. But I'd like to focus on 3. Projects, teamwork and diversity in teams, and you stole my thunder, embracing failure.
Oh, Sidney.
So projects, we are 100% project-based. From day one, students are working on projects. We don't have teachers. We don't have lecturers. There's no 9 a.m. class. There's no 12 p.m. class. If you come to campus at 9 p.m. or midnight, you're going to find students working to deliver their projects. And they go through this process, right? First, they have to understand the problem. There's no teachers, right? So they've got to work together. They have to understand the problem, empathize, work, research, learn how to research properly, ask the right questions, open source research, try things out, test, fix, test again, and then finally, hopefully, come to deliver the project. Now, it doesn't end there. When they've done their project, they have to pass a series of peer-to-peer audits. So they have to pass at minimum 5 audits from their peers, where their peers are trying to break their code, poke holes, see if it works, and they learn from each other because each one would have done it differently. Then this process helps defend and present helps the learner become very good communicators because they learn to defend and present their work, right? Which is another very key aspect of design thinking, communication. And during the course of the 2 years, there's a minimum of 55 projects whereby the students have gone through this process and they become very adept and very good. When you interview at Google or Beyond Money, what they want is that they give you a coding test and they say, show me your GitHub. So all our projects are on GitHub. So we prepare these students, and this is all an integral part. The second part I want to mention is teamwork. From day one, students are working in teams. Even when in order to enter our program, you have to pass the selection pool. A selection pool is a 3-week-long selection process. 3 weeks intense selection process, where you're thrown in teams of very diverse backgrounds. We have 18, 19, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, and university students. About 40% are doing reboot and university. We have today about 300 students. About 38% are full-time employees. They come from accounting backgrounds. They come from oil and gas backgrounds. They come from technical, non-technical. Some are never went to university. Different ages. Are 30s, 40s, our older students, 57. So working in diverse backgrounds is very important. And lastly, embracing failure. Even during the selection pool, and I'll ask a question, why do we say selection pool? Some people ask me this, what's the concept of selection pool? Can anyone guess why we say selection pool? Anyone? No?
You either sink or swim?
Exactly. You either sink or you swim. So you get together, you have to work together. Some people have no background. And during the selection pool, we will find a way, and we tell them to make them fail. And what we're looking for these candidates or prospective students is how do they react to failure? How do they persevere? Do they show grit? Or did they give up easily? And that's part of the selection process.
That was very comprehensive, and what I liked about it is I picked up that it needs to be, or the programs you try to design are very hands-on. They're very dependent on group intelligence, and at the same time they have a ton of teamwork, and they allow a safe space for failure, which I appreciate. And whenever I say...
Collective intelligence is a key part of
collective intelligence, yes. Yeah. I was really glad I picked that up because I am a firm believer in collective intelligence, so I'm glad you have that integrated. Adela, when we say the word failure, it usually is connected very heavily with startups, unfortunately. And this is a very big scene that I'm interested in, I work in. So I want to, the people here, and I know there are a couple of founders here that I know, and how do they cultivate that mindset? So if I want to make sure that I have that ongoing innovative hat, I'm coming up with ideas, I'm allowing myself to fail, how do I cultivate that mindset? Bearing in mind that I'm not 15, so I'm not going to learn it in school. Yeah, I mean, a little bit on another generation.
Well, yeah, anyway, failure is difficult.
I'm 16, yes, Sidney got it right, just in case.
Yeah, failure is difficult regardless the age. But there is good news. Actually, design thinking, it's helping us also in this respect. It's learning us how to fail and then to move on. And for people in the startups, for entrepreneurs at the beginning of their career, that's really very challenging because, of course, when you start the business, you want to be successful, and then you have people around you, your family, friends, and you feel, oh, they will judge me. If I will fail, then they will disconsider myself. So this is one of the reasons why they push things in the market without being sure that these are products or services that will succeed. And the good news is that design thinking is actually offering you the tools to fail in a way that, and we even call it fail fast. That's one of the principles of design thinking, fail fast. What it means that part of the methodology, there are some tools that are teaching you how to prototype a product or a service and how to test it. So the good news is that design thinking doesn't have any cost, only the time that is involved. So you never produce anything physically before doing a prototype that is tested. And if you test it and it fails the test, you just spend some time and you have to do another iteration. But it's not that you invested money in something that is not working. So it's really extremely helpful. If any entrepreneur should start with that, you run a design thinking a project which can take from days to weeks or months if it's a big thing, and then you allow yourself to fail. And I truly believe that you never learn from success as much as you learn from failure, because failure is not the end of the world. You just have to understand what was not really good in your first attempt to succeed and to improve it. And then you go safe on the market after testing and improve. So what we need to build is this culture, this acceptance to failure, but not in a way that failure, okay, I failed and now everyone will have a bad opinion about myself and I will just give up. No, failing fast to learn, to move on and do better.
That's an excellent mindset, I think, whether you're an entrepreneur or anything else. And you say fail fast, and I know Denzel Washington is, I don't know if you know him, he's one of my favorite actors. He says fail forward. Mm-hmm. So if you're failing, you just keep moving forward. And one of the important things would be, as well, if I can add, would be to know that you are going to fail. Because entrepreneur or anything else, there's nobody who's going to do it perfect all the time right. And maybe I've studied your backgrounds, but I know you came to where you are now after a lot of time and a lot of work. So
I would say failure is a stepping stone to success, and it pushes the boundaries of innovation and creativity.
Fantastic. Saba, I'm coming over to you. And I know you do a lot of work that focuses on the youth in Bahrain. And I'm interested, because I know there is a lot of movement like that in Bahrain, how do academic institutions or training institutions collaborate with professional bodies or with organizations to kind of have that bigger impact onto the market?
Sure. Of course, as you mentioned, we work closely with the youth through our programs, which is Rayat, for example, the scholarship program, and the younger generation from the age of 12 until 16. So we focus on giving them the practical side of the theory part they get in school and in the university. So for instance, ITRA program was from 12, as I said, until 16. We try to get them job exposure. It's not an internship, it's something shorter. It's like for a week. It depends on the institute itself. So we have good and strong relationships with different sectors, like banks and financial institutions, industry. So we send our students to those companies to get the, let's say, exposure of the real life work. Similarly, the university students as well, we make sure and we encourage them to get internship opportunities, as this will help them to get the practical side of the knowledge they get and practice the, let's say, the actual work. So in terms for the design thinking, I would encourage universities to include the design thinking in their curricula by, for example, giving them a real-world problem, and they have to think about it and find a human-centered solution to it. Additionally, they can also introduce, let's say, competitions, design thinking competitions, in collaboration with industry to basically give them the theory part as well as the practical part.
Do you see that already happening in Bahrain, the things that you're talking to me about? Because I said this is a practical guide, so is this available for us?
It is happening to a certain extent, let's say. But we should encourage most of the students to get the exposure, to have the practical side of it, because this what distinguish students who doesn't get the, let's say, the practical side or the training, and students who gets it. The students who gets it, they can blend in easily in the real world. Yeah, that's it.
It's really nice because I know that you and maybe Yanal are in the same space, and both of you are telling me the same thing. We're trying to create people that are closer to the workforce, which aligns with, anyway, the vision of the kingdom, that they're trying to have the Bahraini be the employee of choice, the entrepreneur of selection and sustainable businesses. So I think it's really nice that we have the training bodies doing that. Sidney, I'm coming over to you, and what I'm going to ask is probably going to be the last one before we hit off a thunder round to the panelists. If I'm a corporate leader, I own a business or I work in a corporate, how can I establish that mindset to encourage and motivate my staff to sign on to this new culture?
Look, any activity in cultural change is going to be difficult. The bigger the organization, the harder it is, because you have entrenched interests, you have systems that are already in place, you have mindsets already in place. I think the moment you decide to really say, look, we're going to embrace a culture of innovation, the first thing you have to do is start hiring to that. That's the first thing you have to do. You have to start hiring now people that fit this new mold. The second thing you have to do is really go deep into each department and tell them, look, this is where we're going. This is what it's going to be. If you need training, we'll give you training. If you need help, we'll give you help. But this is where we're going, and you have to be with us. It's really important to get people on board. If the people below are not on board, it's very, very difficult. And again, I have, unfortunately, been in many corporations, and what I always see is management always makes half starts at things. Lower level employees get super frustrated, they get really frustrated, and then when the new idea comes, they say, well, there we go again. It'll die after 2 months, just leave it. You need to avoid that.
So it's know your people, build your people, then motivate your people. So you can't motivate people you haven't really got to know how to
Precisely.
build the gap. All right, so if anybody has attended any of my panels before, Noorhan always has what I call a thunder round, and I insist on having it irrespective of how much time I have. My thunder round basically means that you give us your last tip, your last takeaway, that if someone was going to forget everything you said, they're going to remember you for this and hopefully impact them for their lives. BIBF are staring at me, which means I have under 60 seconds. I know, but I'm avoiding eye contact. How do you like that? All right, so you have under 60 seconds. I'm going to make sure everybody gets to speak. Adela, we'll start with you. A tip, something I would remember you with, relevant to the topic.
Well, something that I would really like everyone to keep in mind is that design thinking, it's not rocket science. It's common sense. It's the common sense that we forgot, especially in big organizations, because we work in silos, we fight with each other, we want to be right. And design thinking, it's bringing us back into the only person that really should matter for us, the people that we are serving with our products, services, government, whatever business we are. So it's not rocket science, it's not so hard to learn. And it's the common sense. Well, we need tools. Sometimes even for common sense, we need tools and methods.
You could see the BIBF staffer slowly approaching. Yanal, how about you? Last tip.
Oh gosh, there's lots of opportunities. Bahrain's blessed with so many training opportunities. It's never too late to enter tech. There's a plethora of training programs, and don't be afraid to take the step.
Fantastic, love it. Sidney.
I'm going to steal a little bit from Hamid. Stop falling in love with technology. Technology is a tool. It is just a tool. You don't use a hammer as a screwdriver. You don't use a screwdriver to hit in a nail. Select technologies based on your need and the problem you're trying to address.
Fantastic. Saba?
Design thinking is a mindset. So everyone has to make the effort in their own perspective to change the culture wherever they are. Additionally, there are many solutions to one problem. So be creative in your thinking.
Love it. If you guys allow me, as an entrepreneur in the field, I was really grateful to hear their Thunder Round contributions. But for me, I have learned that I can learn anything. And if I wanted to learn anything, I could. So when I started the business, there are things I didn't know, and I had to learn it, and I figured it out, and now we know it. Now we know how to do it. So the point is, you could learn anything if you set your mind on it, and you can get as many resources as you need. Ladies and gentlemen, it was an absolute honor to be with you on the panel today. Thank you for joining us. BIBF, thank you so much for hosting us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being so kind, so warm, and so welcome. We'll see you in another panel and another time.